Good morning and welcome to another episode of Capital Preview, brought to you by Mediacom, a show where we discuss issues important to Iowa's with our state senators and state representatives. Our guest today on Capital Preview is Senator Jack Whitver, Republican from Ankeny. Morning, Senator.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate that. I know this is probably a busy time for you, trying to wrap up this session. So, Senator, we finally came to an agreement on educational funding. Were you happy with the result of that?
You know, first of all, I was happy that we finally got it done.
Yeah.
You know, we have a state law that says we're supposed to provide that amount a year in advance, and we haven't been following that as well as we should have been. We finally came to an agreement. We only gave the school districts a couple weeks notice before they had to finalize their budgets. I believe we need to give them that information well ahead of time, whether it's good news or whether it's bad news. We need to get them that information early. We haven't done that, but with the 2.25% increase, I believe it's an amount that the schools can continue to operate in a great manner, but it also keeps our budget sustainable for the long term.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one of the problems we ran into a few years ago is we were over-promising and under-delivering on education.
Yeah.
And when that
I remember
happens, when that happens, I mean, you really have, the school districts have two bad options. They can either fire teachers in the middle of the school year,
right,
or they can raise property taxes. We want to continue to make sure that we provide an amount that funds our schools adequately, but we don't overpromise to put us in that bad situation.
Nobody wins when they see teachers getting pink slips
Right.
in the middle of the school year.
That's right.
So,
You know, we're trying to provide or prevent that, and the last few years, I believe we've done a pretty good job of that.
yeah. So you think you're on your way to kind of getting that process a year in advance? So
Well, I hope so. I mean, really, we've kind of got out of that habit the last 3 or 4 years, and we need to get back there, or we need to change the law, one of the two. I mean,
exactly, right.
And I'd be fine with either, but we need to follow the letter of the law.
Yeah. Senator, I know that you represent the Ankeny and Polk County, two areas that are seeing a tremendous amount of growth by anybody's standards. What do you attribute this to, and do you think that's sustainable? Do you think it'll continue the growth like we've seen?
Well, I think it is sustainable, and I think that we have a huge opportunity in Iowa, and you're the mayor of Waukee. You're seeing the same kind of growth that Ankeny is, or maybe even more. But I believe we have one of the great opportunities that we've had in a long time in the state of Iowa. You can't open a magazine or a website that lists the top 10 places to get a job, to start a business, to move your business, to settle after college without seeing somewhere in Iowa on that list. I believe we need to take advantage of that as a legislature, and we're not the ones going to create the jobs. We're not going to do that as a government. But what we need to continue to do is focus with a laser-like focus on policies that will continue to encourage people to come here. You're seeing a lot of growth in Waukee. We're seeing it in Ankeny, and I believe that can continue. We've been stagnant in Iowa for decades at 3 million people, but with all the good publicity and attention coming to Des Moines, I think that this is an opportunity that we can really encourage more people to come. I don't know if you went down to the NCAA basketball tournament last week.
Yep.
I did. It was a fantastic weekend of basketball and a great weekend of publicity for the state of Iowa. Everything you read afterwards, it was, Des Moines is great, Iowa's thriving, and we need to take advantage of that.
So, Senator, do you think that, we're talking about the Des Moines metro area with the cities that surround the Des Moines metro area, but I'm of the belief, and I don't want to sit there and lead the witness here, but I'm of the belief that if the Des Moines metro area is strong, this particular area, then all of Iowa gets stronger.
Yeah, I believe so too. I mean, there are a lot of community bedroom towns around. I grew up in Grinnell. My dad traveled to Des Moines every day to work.
Yeah.
Towns like Grinnell and Pell and Oskaloosa and Ames and Perry, they will stay strong as well if we're bringing big, good corporations to the metro area.
Right.
But there's other parts of Iowa that are doing well.
Absolutely.
Iowa City, Cedar Rapids area is doing great. Sioux City is doing great. I believe that we have the best workforce in the country, and we have the hardest working people in the country. And as companies start to realize that, I believe we're poised for a lot of growth.
And I think they are realizing that, don't you? I mean, I can see it happening.
Absolutely.
Senator, I know that you're a former ranking member of the Appropriations Committee. How are we doing on the budget these days?
We're doing okay. We're not doing as good as we were 3 or 4 years ago. Okay. My first 3 years in the legislature, we were very, very diligent about where we were spending money. And when we did that, we were able to accumulate a large amount in our savings account. Yeah. We had not only $700 million in our emergency funds, but we had $900 million in what I call our savings account. Right. And this led us to be named one of the top 5 managed states in the country. We were on solid footing, and we still are, but that $900 million is starting to creep down towards $150 million or so. And so we just need to continue to focus.
Creep in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge creep. And we just need to continue to focus on what put us in a position to be one of the best managed states in the country. And if we do that, we're going to stay strong for a long time.
So what do you think, I mean, and maybe I missed it, but so why do you think such a large amount of spending? Are they just funding items that weren't funded before? Or?
Well, a few reasons. One, we paid down a little bit of debt,
Yeah.
And so that ate up some of that money.
Yeah.
We had to continue to fill our emergency accounts. As our budget gets bigger, we need to increase the amount in emergencies.
Right.
But then the last couple of years, we've ended the legislative session with a balanced budget, but through the interim, revenues weren't quite as high and expenses were higher than we expected, and so we ended up spending more money than we brought in, and that continues to eat down on that budget. So while the legislature had a balanced budget when we ended, it ended up not being balanced in the end, and so we just need to continue to stick to the principles that put us in such a strong position.
I mean, and do you see, I mean, I know that Iowa, like Nebraska where I came from, is a huge agriculture is absolutely important and vital to our budget and to the state's coffers. So, so do you think that's happening?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just the farmers that struggle when the crop prices go down. It's the whole infrastructure of the farming businesses and the local business where the farmer shops, and it goes all the way down through our economy. And so that's played a big part in the revenues not being as high as we expected the last couple of years.
Right. I think it's kind of a creep, right? I mean, I think it's happening, and people don't quite realize the big impact that is happening on the state budget.
Yep, absolutely.
So, the Medicare transition has been talked a lot about the Capitol this year. What do you think about the transition, which was effective, by the way, last Friday, April 1st? So.
Yeah, it's something that Medicaid is such a huge program for the state of Iowa, and it affects so many people. Not only the providers that provide the services, but the patients. There's many hundreds of thousands of people in Iowa on Medicaid. And so anytime you have transition or change, people are nervous about it, and they should be with such a big program. But the program is in place. The feds approved it. It is now in place. And as a legislature, we need to continue just to provide oversight to make sure that people are still getting the services they need and providers are still getting the communication with the state that they need. But ultimately, it's something that we need to do because the costs of Medicaid were spiraling out of control. It was one of our biggest cost drivers in our budget every year when you talk about the budget going up. And it's something that we need to get a handle of that, not only to control our budget, but also to ultimately provide the best services we possibly can to the people on Medicaid. And that's really the goal of this program. And I think now that it's in place, our job as legislators is to provide the oversight needed to make sure that it's working.
Yeah, and I think sometimes private industry can do things better than the.
Yeah, absolutely, and these companies have done this over and over and over again, and it's really about streamlining care for any patient, so that all the doctors that a patient may see are communicating to make sure they have the best health care possible. And so it is anytime you have big change, it affects a lot of people. There's a lot of nervous people out there, but we're going to continue to keep a close eye on it to make sure it's working.
Yeah. It had another big hot issue that has, been going around now for 2 or 3 years. It's the medical marijuana cannabis oil, bill, and now you're trying to find rules, right? Or produce the rules that run the.
Yeah, it is one of the most interesting topics that I've seen in my 6 years in the legislature.
Yeah.
4 years ago, the thought of it passing was there was zero chance.
Right.
And then a group of passionate parents and patients came to the Capitol with their story, and they were able to get a bill passed. Frankly, I don't think the bill was very well done. It was done at the last minute on the last day of session. I'm very open-minded to this, but I think that we need to continue to go through the proper processes. Right now, marijuana is a Schedule I drug at the federal level. Mm-hmm. As long as it's Schedule I at the federal level, we can't do the research we need and we can't approve it as a drug. And so to me, it's a partnership with the feds. They have to change it from Schedule I to Schedule II, which I've already voted on in the state of Iowa to do that, but they need to do it at the federal level. Once they do that, we can do the research that we need to know what illnesses we should be using this for, what ages, can we use it with babies or infants, or is it a certain age? what dosage, how often. We don't have that information right now. I'm open-minded to it, but I think we need to be careful and work with our federal government to make sure that we do it the right way.
How are you going to get the federal government to get it done before you guys take it up?
Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky part. We already passed a law that said it's
Right.
legal in Iowa.
Right.
But we also said you have to go to a different state to buy it. Well, once you buy it in Colorado and drive across Nebraska and back into Iowa, you're breaking federal law by crossing the state lines. And so really it's something that we need to continue to talk to the federal government. The same people that advocated to us need to continue to talk to Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst and our congressmen to make sure they know what we're trying to do in Iowa. And until we do that, I just think we're not going to do it the right way until we've worked with the federal government to do it.
You know, and just a quick question, curiosity on my part. So it's legal in Colorado to grow and sell it. Are you breaking any federal laws in Colorado by?
That's a big 10th Amendment issue, and you're breaking the law once you leave Colorado and cross the state lines. I think that's why a lot of banks won't accept money from businesses that grow or sell marijuana, because with the banking, that's federal law. It's just a really convoluted situation, and so. Colorado has a right to do it, but the federal government has a right to prosecute if they want to.
Right.
This administration has chosen not to do so. That could change in the future, but I really think if we're going to do it right, we have to work with them and not try to fight against them.
So right now the two things sit side by side and they're just kind of standing down, right? From each other.
That's exactly right.
But it could turn bad, like you said, in a different administration.
Yeah, but I think popular opinion, and I have not voted for one of the medical marijuana bills to this point.
Yeah.
But we know popular opinion is shifting that way towards, and I'm very open-minded to doing the research and doing it the right way.
Yep.
And I think as that opinion gets more and more popular, the federal government will eventually notice, because it's happening in states all over the country. And if it is truly the cannabidiol truly works to save patients and help patients, we should be doing it.
Yeah.
But right now we need more research to know if that's going to work.
You need your federal partners to kind of step forward a little bit and help you guys. So finally, I got two quick questions. So as this session comes to an end, which is supposed to be on April the 19th, into the 100 days, how would you rate this session?
I would say it's largely a status quo session. I think we've done a decent job of managing state government. I, for one, did not come down just to manage state government. I'm hoping that we do some big reforms that can help position Iowa in a better place for the future. But I think for the first time in 6 years that I've been in the legislature, we have a chance to actually get done on time. My first year, we went all the way to June 30th, and then it was middle June and May. I think we have a chance to get done on time. I think I think we've managed the government fine, but I think we need to continue to focus on reforms that can put us in a better spot.
Right. Now, a quick question, Senator, and again, it's out of my curiosity. I've asked most of the guests that have been with us. We're in an unbelievable presidential election year.
Yes, we are.
I'd like to hear your 2 cents about how you perceive things how they're going. And
yeah, I mean, it's been, I've only been in politics a short amount of time, but it's been the craziest election that people have seen in a long, long time. I mean, on the Republican side, that's where I've spent most of my attention, because that's my party. We started with 17 candidates, and now we're down to only a couple. And the party is so split right now. I don't know how we're going to bring it together before the fall, and a lot of that will depend on who comes out of. I think it's going to go to a convention. I think it's going to be a contested convention, because I don't think anyone will get the required number of delegates. It depends on who comes out of that convention, I think, with how quickly we can unite the party. But we're in a tough spot as Republicans, and it's been an interesting election for sure, but I was a Marco Rubio supporter. That was the guy that I thought that could unite our party and bring us together. Unfortunately, he did not get there. So we'll see out of the convention what happens, I guess.
Senator Whitver, Republican from Ankeny, I very much appreciate you coming in here this morning. It's been enjoyable. Stay tuned for another episode of Capitol Preview.